Hello and welcome to another event in our Tech Talk series. Today's presentation will cover secure cloud development. As you may know, Salesforce.com is a publicly traded company, and therefore we do need to share this safe harbor statement with you to let you know that any forward-looking statements are just that, forward-looking statements. If you have questions regarding this safe harbor statement, you can find it on our website under the Investor Relations section. So with that, I'd like to introduce Varun Badwar.
Thank you. Hello, and thank you for joining us this morning or this afternoon, wherever in the world you are located. As mentioned earlier, my name is Varun Badwar, and I manage the security program for all ISVs partnering with Salesforce.com. I'm very excited to announce this morning the initiative that the entire security team has been working hard on for the last couple of years, and we believe it will provide significant benefit to the entire Force.com developer and ISV community. To briefly go over the agenda, we're going to be discussing Salesforce.com's philosophy, the vision behind introducing this program, what secure cloud development really is and the different phases. And as we go through the phases, we're also going to look at some very cool demos and also show you the resources that are available to you. And at the end, we'll go ahead and go through and address some of your questions. But as mentioned earlier, you can feel free to type in your questions during the presentation. Someone on the team will try to address them along the way. So as many of you may already have been involved with the cloud computing space, you understand that earning customer trust and providing transparency are critical to the success of cloud computing. That being said, there's nothing more important for Salesforce.com than ensuring the privacy of our customer data. In that regard, we have an entire product security team that is dedicated to ensuring the highest quality and security reliability of our applications. We work very closely with R&D to ensure all new features are tested rigorously to ensure these highest standards. Also, we go through some very rigorous certification programs during the course of the year, things like SysTrust, SAS 70, ISO 27001. And in addition to that, our customers are testing us on a weekly basis. Now, a lot of you would be interested in what really motivated us to come up with this secure cloud development that, as I mentioned earlier, took a couple of years for us to develop. As a SaaS solution developer, trust is absolutely critical to the success of your company and your products. Without going into too many specifics, I'd like to mention that there have been a number of companies that have gone out of business because of security breaches that led to customers losing trust in their organization. By becoming one of the first platform as a service, software as a service provider to implement secure cloud development, we want to create a security-conscious community of developers and ISVs. We want you to be able to deliver trusted applications, Force.com applications to your customers. That being said, we've gone to great lengths to ensure that the applications you're developing on our platform with proper training and awareness address all your security issues and help you reach this goal. To enable you to reach this success level, we're going to be providing you a number of free tools, educational resources, and processes. Finally, we want to reduce your development costs. We understand a lot of you are specifically developing on platforms like Force.com to keep your costs low. And we want you to proactively develop and design secure applications versus being in a reactive mode where you address security issues post-release. Customers are very security conscious today. They are analyzing and assessing all applications, specifically enterprise customers like large financial institutions and healthcare organizations. And as research has shown, eliminating vulnerabilities in the design stage can cost 30 times less than fixing them post-release. And that's where we want you to really focus on and reduce your costs. So now that we've talked about the vision, let's talk about how you can effectively integrate these resources that we'll be discussing today into your software development lifecycle. You must be pretty familiar with this. A typical software development lifecycle includes design, development, testing, and release. Education, of course, being the core of it. What's important to understand here, and the key takeaway, is that security is not a separate phase in the development lifecycle. In fact, it integrates into each different phase of the cycle, and we're going to be discussing how that happens during the next few slides. Not all these resources may apply to your organization, or you may choose to prioritize some or the other. Conversely, you may decide to use more than these resources that we're offering, and we definitely welcome that. As I mentioned, education is the core of any development lifecycle in any organization. And we have a number of security educational resources to assist you depending on your role and involvement within the organization. For instance, if you are an org administrator, this may apply more to you, but there's something which is called the Overview of Force.com Security, and which talks about the sharing model and the security controls available to you to help you protect your data and your orgs. Typically, these features are enabled within the UI itself and do not require any programming. Now, if you're an advanced developer looking to develop secure applications on the Force.com platform, we have a recorded 60-minute training that educates you on the most common vulnerabilities in web applications, demos on how hackers exploit these vulnerabilities, and how to prevent them on Force.com. More than anything, I'd like to point out that compared to other developer educational and recorded training sessions, this is absolutely free, and you can access it on demand anytime you'd like. I definitely encourage the entire development team to spend the 60 minutes on this, because this is not a typical developer training program. It focuses on top web application vulnerabilities that you tend not to learn about in college. And we can speak for that because on our entire security team, a lot of members have computer science degrees in college, and none of us really learned about this during the course of our 4 years in college. Finally, we have a developer quiz, which helps you assess the security awareness of the development team and your technical staff. There's 10 randomly picked questions with increasing difficulty. They're multiple choice, and this is independent of developer training. So you may choose to take this before or after the developer training course, but we definitely recommend you spending the 60 minutes on training first to ensure you get better results on the quiz. Let's go in and look at how you can access these resources at any given time. As I mentioned, the recorded 60-minute training will, if you look at the agenda, it talks about things like the different common vulnerabilities. It shows you demos on those vulnerabilities, and it also gives you, talks about the protection that's available on the Force.com platform. So once you've spent your time on this, if you'd like to go ahead and take the quiz, you access our platform security quiz, and all these resources are available from the security homepage on developer.force.com. Accessing the quiz is as simple as entering your name, your company name, your email address, and once you hit the register button, you typically end up getting an email with a URL for you to access your quiz. Let's go in and take a look at what the quiz looks like. As I mentioned earlier, it's a multiple choice question answer type format. You get multiple code snippet options. Typically, it's questions around helping you identify the correct secure version of an application or code snippet. And for example, in this question, there's 4 different code snippets, and you've been asked to pick the one which is correctly secured. Based on the training that you may have gone through before, this should be fairly reasonable for you to answer these questions. And at the end of the 10 questions, you get a grade, again, depending 0 to 100%, depending on where you stand. Here's another example of a different question where we show you some Visualforce code snippet as well as the related Apex class, and you're asked to select all the vulnerabilities that are presented in the example. So it's definitely recommended you spend a few minutes on the quiz and the training before getting started on development at Force.com. So once you've been through the security training and are ready to start developing applications on the platform, there's a number of specific resources that are available to you. There's generic resources around interesting topics such as portal and sites authentication, SAML, single sign-on, sharing, among other things. If you already have in mind your application architecture that you're looking to develop on Force.com, or simply integrate with Force.com an existing client application or a third-party hosted web application, you can go through a very interesting and free tool called Security Self-Assessment. What it does is you answer a few questions around the application architecture, and at the end you receive a customized report with links to security articles, resources that are specific to your architecture that you can then refer to during the course of your development cycle. If you've already been through that and you still have unanswered questions, you can always book office hours with an expert from the product security team. Again, this is at no cost to you. We offer 60-minute office hours 4 times a week. Definitely recommend you could make the most of this offering from Salesforce.com Typically, if you were to go to consulting firms, these things could cost you anywhere between $100 an hour to $400 an hour. So it's highly recommended you use this whether you have questions around security, risk assessments, application architecture, secure design principles, any of those things. Finally, we have a security discussion board now where you can get help from your peers and colleagues in the development community and see how people are addressing similar issues as something that you might be concerned about. Let's go ahead and take a look at the security self-assessment tool and see how that works. As I mentioned, the security self-assessment tool asks you a few questions about your application architecture, things like, is the application hosted outside of Force.com? Let's say in this example it is not. Does it have a Force.com package with customizations like Visual Force and Apex classes? We said yes. It asks you a few more questions around the technologies you're using. Are you using custom controllers? Are you enforcing field-level security, CRUD? Are you using S-controls? No. Do you have any client components? For this example, let's say, yes, we do. They do store Salesforce credentials. We use Adobe Flex. Don't use any ActiveX components. And you'll see within a couple of minutes what I've received here is a very specific report based on the application architecture I mentioned, and it talks about things like things I need to be concerned about, things like buffer overflows or cross-site request forgery. Around Flash, we mentioned we have Flash, so it talks about Flash security, amongst other things, including native components like enforcing CRUD FLS, injection, arbitrary redirects. And what you can do is then use this during the next phase of development and make sure you have reference back to these articles. I'd also mentioned about office hours. This is our office hour booking site. You can come here. All the times in blue are available. So you can find a time that's convenient to you. Simply click on the time that works, fill out the form, put in some contact information and description of what you would like to talk to us about, and reserve the time. It will send you an email with a calendar invite as well as send something back to our product security team where one of the members will be sure to join you on the call. So at this stage, you've gone through a couple of resources. You're ready to begin development on Force.com or just simply integrate your applications with Force.com. We have something called Secure Coding Guidelines now available to you, where we provide you platform-specific recommendations on what security bugs exist, the most common ones, how to fix those, how to test for those, as well as any information on helpful frameworks and libraries you can leverage to kind of almost take a shortcut in addressing these issues, save some time, as well as have secure implementations. A key to note here is that we're not just providing you information on Force.com, but also on other common platforms we see our partners developing on. Our goal is to, as a community, help you develop secure applications, not just on Force.com. Again, if you're integrating with other common frameworks or technologies like Java, .NET, Ruby on Rails, we provide you information along those lines as well. We also have a great new offering, which is Secure Coding Library. It's an open source library for implementing specific additional security features related to your application. The things that we cover today are CRUD and FLS enforcement, which is record level, field level security, as well as input validation and output encoding. For instance, if you have an application that accepts credit card or social security numbers, we provide you ready-to-use libraries for input validation. These are things you can just grab the code, copy, paste it, and you're ready to go. Essentially, if you want to expand on that, this is open source, community-driven. We're welcoming feedback. Let's say you take this and you make some new cool addition to that. Feel free to provide us that feedback. We'd be happy to add that to the Secure Coding Library as well. The goal here was that when a lot of you may have been through the AppExchange security review process and have had us ask you to address certain issues. There's a number of approaches you can take to address some of these issues. Some may be right, some may impact performance. So what we wanted to do is provide you a consistent way to address these security issues in the best possible way for you, for your application, as well as something that meets our security standards. This Secure Coding Library is part of the OWASP Enterprise Security API. OWASP stands for the Open Web Application Security Project, and the goal of this organization is to protect web applications. It's a great resource that our partners have been using and referring to as well and have seen great benefit from it. Feel free to reference this. It has material above and beyond what we may cover in our secure cloud development program. They also offer some great free tools like the CSRF Guard for CSRF protection, as well as some free testing tools like WebScarab. I'm going to go in and show you what a secure coding guideline looks like so you have reference of the kind of information you can expect. Again, under the development section, we have secure coding guidelines. As I mentioned earlier, we try to cover the most common vulnerabilities and use cases. In this example, let's go ahead and take a look at the cross-site scripting secure coding guideline. It talks about what the cross-site scripting vulnerability is, tells you how to test if your application is vulnerable, as well as provide you platform-specific recommendations. In this case, Apex, Visual Force, ASP.NET, Java, PHP, Ruby on Rails. In this example, let's just go and look at the Apex and Visual Force recommendation and the information available to you. As you can tell, we talk about what the existing protection on the platform is. For example, any tags with form Apex have anti-XSS filters in place. We then talk about how potentially as a developer you could disable these escape statements and our filters. So things like setting escape equals false would disable this filter on the platform. But if there's a use case where you do in fact need to disable that, how do you protect your application amongst other ways? Things like using HTML encode, JS encode, which we talk about down below here. The HTML encode functions, which provide you code snippets of where the application may be vulnerable and how to address those. So as you can tell, there's a lot of detail, a lot of code snippets and samples on how you may be able to address these issues. If you refer to these during your development cycle, you should be able to develop pretty secure applications on the platform without spending too much time on trying to identify how best to do it. So this is my favorite part of the offerings that we have today. Once you've completed development following the security best practices, you're probably in fairly good shape. But being that we're human beings and we're prone to errors, even a small error or a security hole could lead to potentially catastrophic damage for your organization. And for that, we want to provide you great tools that you can use to finally test your application after you've securely developed it. And the first solution that we provide is the Force.com Security Source Code Scanner. For this, Salesforce has partnered with Checkmarx to come up with the first and one of its kind on-demand static source code analysis tool to identify potential vulnerabilities within Apex and Visual Force code. In order to run this solution, you just have to provide your username for the org where the code was developed. And within a few minutes to a few hours, depending on the backlog within the tool, you will be emailed a report to the account associated with the username. The report provides you detailed information on the vulnerability down to the file name and line number. So it's really easy to go see what the issue is and fix it right away. To give you context, this tool uncovered a couple of hundred vulnerabilities within an app recently, but with the help of the detailed report and the information provided to mitigate those, the ISV was able to bring it down to 0 vulnerabilities within 2 days. And we'll look into a sample report in a couple of minutes. Now, if your solution also includes an integration with a non-Force.com web application, let's say it's a .NET application hosted by your organization or at a data center, and you're also a registered AppExchange or OEM partner, we're offering you a free license to Burp Suite Professional tool for 1 year. Burp Suite Professional is a black box automated testing tool that helps you uncover standard web vulnerabilities. So let's go take a look at these sample reports and see how you can run these tools. I'm going to go back to our security homepage, go into testing, and open up the security source scanner first. Here's the source scanner page. As I mentioned, all you have to do is enter your username. If you're interested in details about how this works, there's a more detailed section that talks about it. But in this case, I'm ready to go. I've developed my code. I just put in my username and hit submit. You get the terms and conditions that you agree to. And once you go through that, the code has been submitted in the scanning queue. As I mentioned, within a few minutes, or a little longer than that, depending on the backlog, you will receive an email with an attachment that looks like this. The attachment gives you a high-level overview of the vulnerability classes identified, which in this sample report you can tell there's some cross-site scripting, some access control issues, SQL injection. I'm going to maximize this report. It also gives you a summary of all the issues found and how many actual vulnerability instances were found, what the threat level is of those instances. If we scroll further down in the report, it actually gives you the exact file name where the issues were found as well. Further down in the report, we give you details on the vulnerability identified, the demonstrative examples of where the vulnerability exists, and why, in fact, your code may be potentially vulnerable. We provide you information on potential mitigations and the best way to address those issues, and some references back to good documentation. The report tends to be fairly accurate, but again, keep in mind this is an automated tool, and there are chances of false positives. As I mentioned, in the class name, it actually goes down in the file name to the line number of the code that's vulnerable. So in this case, it tells you the line number. It tells you why it's vulnerable. So if we just take the path 1 as example here, you can tell that we're taking a parameter off a GET request, and without any validation or filtering, we're just rendering that back on the page within a script tag, which leads to potential cross-site scripting issues. Let's also go further down in the report and take a look at a couple more examples. We also found SOCL injection in this case, which is SOCL is basically same as SQL, similar to SQL, but it's a platform-specific implementation of SQL. Again, we provide you examples, potential mitigations. In this case, in the first path example, you'll see that there's user data flowing directly into a SOCL query. That over here is appended the name. And if you wanted to see how to address this vulnerability, you would just scroll up to potential mitigations and see that we talk about avoiding using dynamic SOCL queries. If that's something you're unable to do, we talk about using escape single quotes method to sanitize input. So you just by looking at this report, you know exactly where in the code to go back and address your issues. So we highly recommend that if you're developing Apex and Visualforce code, you use this as testing each time you're releasing a new version of the application. Also, to provide context, if you're an AppExchange partner and you're publishing these packages on the AppExchange, these scans will be automatically run each time you upload and try to associate a package with your listing. And if there's any vulnerabilities noted, you will be sent an automated report and requested to address those issues. So let's go back and now look at the web application scanner where we're offering you a free license. This is not something that Salesforce has created. Instead, we've worked with a third-party Portswigger who offers the Burp Suite Professional tool. If you're an AppExchange or an OEM partner, you would come to this request form, fill in some basic information, submit it to us, and if you qualify, we will be sending you a license within 1 to 2 weeks. Let's look at a sample output of a report for you to understand the kind of vulnerabilities it identifies and how it can help you out. So let me look at this report here. Again, it found some basic vulnerabilities within the application. Let's go down to the cross-site scripting issue and see what it found. Again, the report will give you some background and issue remediation instructions. It'll give you the specific URL and the parameter which was vulnerable. It'll tell you the payload used to exploit the vulnerability and test it. Keep in mind this is a black box testing tool, so you do not have insight into the code. Rather, it'll tell you how, from an external perspective, the tool tried to test your application. It shows you the request, it shows you the response, and shows you why in this case the script was reflected back on the page, so it knows it's a cross-site scripting issue. Keep in mind these tools are, again, as I mentioned earlier, automated. They may not catch 100% of the things. For example, the web application scanner is great for certain things, not for the others. You can go into the more details page and read up more about running the tool, as well as things that the tool may miss, so some false negatives and false positives. That being said, let's see what else we have available for you now as part of the new program. Once you've completed testing of your application and you're comfortable releasing it to your customers, there's a couple of ways you can go to market. One is obviously through your own channels without partnering with Salesforce.com. The other is by partnering with Salesforce.com, either via the AppExchange, which is our third-party applications marketplace, or as an OEM partner. If you enroll in any of the Salesforce partner programs, you go through a periodic security review, which is conducted by my team here internally. In that case, by this point, if you've been through all the previously mentioned steps and phases and have tested your application internally, you should feel fairly comfortable about passing the security review. We tend to use the similar tools as those we've provided to you. In addition, we also use manual testing techniques. You can get more details around that on the security review wiki page. Also, if you're coming up with a SaaS solution, you're managing data for your customers, it's critical that you have an incident response plan in place. An incident response plan is something where you have your plan in place for engaging with customers and with Salesforce.com in case of a security incident. You want to be prepared for the worst, and this is where we want to help you out. We will be, in the near future, providing you with some documentation around coming up with these plans as well as templates and best practices. So please keep a lookout for that. At the end, I'd just like to reiterate that all of these resources we talked about are free and ready to consume. So please make the most of these. We've worked really hard on these. We've received feedback from you and where we felt you would have liked to see more help from our side, and we've come up with this program. We want you guys to be successful in the marketplace. We're here to help out. Please leverage these resources as best as you can. We want to develop and come up with a secure Force.com ecosystem and community of developers. Again, as I mentioned, community involvement is necessary, so things like security discussion boards, feedback on our open source material, feedback on the training we're providing you is greatly appreciated, and we will make the most we'll do our best to incorporate your feedback into the next versions of this program. Our goal here is to reduce your development costs, and we're here to work with you on that. We're trying to provide you resources that will help you do that. So please do understand that and keep that in mind when using these resources, that this is for the benefit of the community as a whole. Also, a lot of you who may be AppExchange partners have struggled in the past with the security review process, have had to go through multiple iterations, which can be frustrating and challenging. We hope that these resources we provided you with will streamline this process for you and help you be successful on the AppExchange marketplace without too much overhead off the security review process. There's some key resources. The Secure Cloud Development homepage is available on developer.force.com/security. We've talked about the on-demand security source code scanner. There's the security discussion board, the AppExchange security review page, as well as the OS. You will have a recording of this available to you, so you'll be able to access these resources as well. At this point, we're going to dig into Q&A, and let's see what questions have come in from you. I also have with me Robert Fly, and we're going to be just jointly answering some of your questions here. So the first question is when you'll be receiving the screencast of this tech talk. We will be sending a follow-up email later today, or very shortly, in fact, within a day, with the screencast and presentation. Another question is about where and how to access these resources, specifically the developer security training. You can find the developer training course, which is called Writing Secure Apps on the Force.com platform, at developer.force.com/security under the Force.com security resources. And let me really quickly show you how to access that. So let's go to developer.force.com, a property and site which you may be fairly familiar with. You can go down to Technical Library, Security. That takes you down to our Secure Cloud Development page. And under Education, you see the Writing Secure Apps training program. Again, another question about the homepage. This is, in fact, the homepage, developer.force.com/security. If you have any problems, who should you contact? The best way to contact the security team is securecloud@salesforce.com, which is available here also. If you're not an AppExchange partner, the question is if you can receive security testing by the Salesforce.com team. We specifically only conduct hands-on testing of applications that are part of the Force.com partner program. But regardless of that, we've provided you a lot of these tools that we use internally ourselves. And also you can leverage our office hours if you have questions or you want to ask us how we conduct our testing and you want to come up with your own internal testing plan. The next question is if Sandbox is supported for the security source code scanner. Currently it is not. Only production instances and developer orgs are supported. So if you're developing in a developer edition org, you can definitely leverage the source code scanner. Next question is if we offer an Eclipse plugin for Force.com developers that performs security scans. We do not at this time, but that is something under consideration and would love your feedback as you leverage these resources that we have released now. If you feel there would be use of that, definitely let us know and we'll be working on that in the future. Another question, do I have to stay on Eclipse 3.4 for the Force.com IDE? For now, you'll have to stick with 3.4, but with our Spring 10 release, we'll be releasing the new version of the Eclipse IDE, and that'll be around April 19th, when then you can leverage 3.5. Next question we have from the audience is how long will it take for the security source scanner to scan the application? There's a couple of things that depends upon. It depends on how many scans are already queued up before you, as well as your code base size. It could take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to a few hours. See if there's any other questions. I think that's it. A lot of these questions have already been answered. Thank you all very much for your time. We will be sending out the recording shortly. We hope you will really benefit from this program and look forward to receiving the feedback from you at you can always email us at securecloud@salesforce.com. Thank you so much.